interesting. I think you are the first guest that have basically been a part of every single major conflict in the past 20 something years.
Yeah.
You have Somalia, you have Kosovo, you have the Gulf War, you have Afghanistan in 2001, Iraq in 2003. Were there similarities between what the Marine Corps was in the 90s to what it is today?
My fault was probably being almost too friendly. You realize they don't want to be your boy. You're the officer, we're the Marines. Like, there's trying to find that balance, I think, is hard initially when you first get in because you are closer in age to them than your senior leader officers. I'm here every day. I'm practicing my ass off. Yeah. I'm in the gym working out. These guys are kind of slacking off. They can't, but how can they not see that? But I think they were, you had to like go above and beyond if you wanted to get that shot.
But they had actually brought out, we were, doing circles or whatever, they brought out pickled herring as a,
to haze you.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Not hazing,
right.
Purely optional, allegedly. Don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Right.
But I just see it. I go, dude, you just saved me $8.
I love it. I'm so fired. Can I have yours? Yeah.
I ate the whole jar myself. I go, dude, this is a delicacy.
Right.
I'm a big fan.
This guy.
Welcome to the In the Field podcast, where we speak to veterans, service members, and those in the transition process to learn about their stories. Beau, thank you so much for being on the
Great being here.
Thanks
Fired
so
up,
much
man.
for coming in.
No, it's awesome.
First question I ask all my guests is, when was the last time you had an MRE?
I can't remember exactly. I think it would be 2014. That's the year I retired.
Yep.
And I was deployed for part of that year.
Oh, wow.
We were over in Afghanistan. So there were times we just had them, they had them around when we were off doing some missions and traveling around. So we definitely had them in then. And so 2014, right before in the December 2013, January 2014 timeframe.
Got it. So 11 years. Yeah. So we'll see if 11 years things have gotten any better. Unfortunately, we don't have. Did you have the Cristal water bottles in 2014?
I can't. The packaging definitely looks new, so I'm excited about the new packaging there. It's I was always a fan of MREs, even back in the day. Even it was the old brown wrapper versus the new colored brown, the dark brown. It's just they were just out there and gotta eat, man. So,
awesome. Yeah. Well, we unfortunately only have two options left. We're at the bottom of the MRE box. So you've got two options. You've got pizza slice, or Mexican style rice and bean bowl.
Wow. I'll go Mexican. I don't know. I mean, if you feel like pizza, I'm easy.
There we go. Yeah. All right. So that one's yours, sir.
Okay. Mexican style rice and bean bowl.
As we
like Chipotle.
Open these up, I don't want to spoil your story, but I've noticed a kind of common theme in your background or your life, and that kind of boils down to service.
Yeah.
What does service mean to you? And how does it kind of define your life?
That's a great question. And I think service is hugely important to me. And I think it's something that I learned at a very young age, going to a Jesuit high school where we talked about being a man for others at that time frame, when you're formative years. And I think, it's interesting when you're in the military, and I didn't necessarily plan on joining the military. I can talk about that later, but you're serving, but you don't necessarily even think about it as service. All right. I didn't appreciate the fact I was serving because that's my job. That's what I do. I'm doing this every day. That's what I get up for. But then when I left the Marine Corps, and I've been out for 10 years now, there's something that you miss. I call it the give back factor. And that to me is what service is, right? It's how do you take the gifts you've been given, the God-given gifts you've been given, to give back in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And anyone can give back in some way. I mean, we all do it differently. We all have our different, gifts and strengths. So how do you take what you have and find a way to give back? And that to me, at its simplest form, is what service is all about.
Got it. And I'm super excited to hear how you kind of came to that. So who is Beau growing up, whose childhood, Beau, and you had said that the military wasn't in your cards, or that it was very unlikely, or that it wasn't really tracking. So, growing up, what was it like?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a middle-class family in New Orleans. Oldest of 5 kids, big Catholic family there. And I will say, my dad had been a Marine, an enlisted Marine, before I was born. So I didn't know, I didn't go through deployments. I didn't have any time when he was active duty when I was around. But he did talk about the stories of the Marine Corps,
right?
And him and his buddies, and he was enlisted, and like he was always getting in trouble, and he was late for, came back late for formation, and he got poison ivy when he was camouflaging up. So I had these ideas, I think maybe in my head, of this, version of the Marine Corps that he was in.
Yeah.
But that was not, it was a very, very small piece of my upbringing. It was not like it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't something we talked about a whole lot. And it wasn't something I would ever even considered thinking I would be in the military. I wasn't like, always through high school and into college thinking I was gonna be in the military. It happened later during college. And again, I can talk about that too, but it was not something that I grew up with. To me, growing up, it was my mom would still, even, it's a pretty funny story. After I joined the military, I'd been in for 20 years. My mom was like, Beau, when are you gonna stop playing soldier and be a doctor or a lawyer? That's what my mom's vision always, I think, was like, oh, you're so smart. You should be a doctor or a lawyer. So I think growing up, the expectation was that I would go to college and then go be a doctor or a lawyer. That's kind of what you have in your head. But, my path didn't follow a straight line, as many paths do not. So, yeah.
And then you told your mom, I'm not a soldier, I'm a Marine.
She never got that. But, it's okay. That's mom's prefer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She gets a pass.
Exactly.
So what were your interests in high school? Were you a sports guy? Were you, video games, nerdy?
I was a sports guy, so I played football. Not very well. I was all right. I'm a big guy, so I played football. I ended up actually walking on in Virginia, played football there. But I was on the bowling team, and I was also in. I thought that was pretty smart, actually. I was in the plays, so I was in an all boys Catholic high school.
Got it.
Our high school had amazing musicals. Like Harry Connick Jr. was in my class, and like they were really good. The all girls schools also put on plays, and they needed guys to be in the plays. So. I was in the plays. I did No Nanette and Once Upon a Mattress.
Oh, wow.
So I was in the plays at the girls' school. It was a great way to meet the girls.
Yeah.
So it was to me, it was kind of genius. So I did football, bowling team, in the plays. And I think was one of those guys, I feel like, that, was kind of connected a little bit to every group in some way, shape, or form. Didn't really have something that defined me per se.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know if it was good or bad, maybe because I couldn't figure out exactly what I was all about.
Yeah.
But just, kept a broad, network of friends back then.
Was your high school, what's the word? When you stay there overnight?
Boarding school or something?
Was it a boarding school?
No, it was just day students. It's one of the all boys Catholic in mid-city New Orleans. My dad went there. I mean, it's been a family. Part of my family forever. Yeah.
Right.
My brother coached there for a while and taught there. But we had a khaki uniform, khaki pants, khaki shirt, name tag. So it has like a military thing to it.
I was going to say, it's a subtle.
And they had a Marine Corps JROTC unit at my high school, which it's pretty funny actually too. I tried it out for a year during high school. And I was horrible. Truly horrible. I'll never forget, we had our big inspection day for our ROTC, and I had forgotten it was inspection day. So I had not sewed on my my JROTC patch on my uniform. Yeah. So I show up at the formation, and I had taken double-sided tape and taped it to my shoulder, and my shoes weren't shined, so I took some this Amway spray and sprayed my shoes. By the time you walked, my shoes were peeling, my patch was falling off. I was just a disaster. I mean, I failed Marine Corps JROTC in high school. So again, you would never think that I would actually join the Marine Corps later, but it's funny how it all works out.
You mentioned walking on to VT Go Hoagies, right?
No, UVA. Cavaliers.
UVA.
Yes.
My apologies.
No, all good.
Was that school always on your mind? What was the kind of college decision?
Yeah. So it's funny. My dad was very involved with the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, the football game. Yep. But they had, when I was growing up, they actually had a Sugar Bowl basketball tournament as well, always over Christmas holidays. And like 2 years in a row, Virginia played in the Sugar Bowl basketball tournament when I was in high school. And at the time, it was when Ralph Sampson had just played there, so they were very good in basketball. And that's how UVA got on my radar, was through the Sugar Bowl basketball tournament. Right. So, and my dad became good friends with Terry Holland, who was the head coach at Virginia at the time. And that is kind of, again, they wouldn't have gotten on my radar. I mean, most of my friends went to LSU or SEC schools. But yeah, that's how it got on my radar. They were really good at basketball at the time, and went up and visited and just kind of fell in love with it. So it's a beautiful, I mean, it was unbelievable, but it wasn't something that, again, I grew up with, like, had no family background, had no other reason but their basketball team back in the mid-'80s. So, yeah.
Got it. And I see you're going for crackers now. Is that regular cheese? Or?
I got peanut butter. I got a little peanut butter going. I know jam me up sometimes. And a peanut butter and cracker to start off with. But
nice.
Yeah.
I've got oatmeal cookie.
Nice.
Always a fan favorite. If you want instead cheese spread with jalapeno,
that's matched my favorite. I love the cheese spread.
There you go.
When they brought the jalapeno, that was a nice little touch. Yeah, I was always sad, though, as a New Orleans guy. I was sad when they stopped putting the Tabasco bottles in the MRE. That was like a go-to move. And the McElhaney family is an old military family in Louisiana with the Tabasco bottles. And that was, to me, one of their, like the jalapeno cheese was a good ad. Losing the Tabasco bottle was a big negative, in my opinion.
There's a couple that still have them, though I've been kind of disappointed. I've seen some that have been like evaporated or not.
It's not the same as it used to be. It used to be the original, like just the mini version of it. And yeah. Totally.
You're a proud New Orleans. And do you only drink Sazeracs and things with the Schwa bitters? Or?
No, I will have one once in a while, but it's definitely not only a Sazerac or Dixie beer. Also not the greatest, but I'll have one or two.
I love bitter drinks. I'm a fan of Sazerac. So when I was in New Orleans. Yeah. I did get corrected in New Orleans for saying New Orleans.
You can't say no. People like no, that's a little too much. It's like New Orleans, kind of smooths it together a little bit.
But I love bitter drinks. I actually love like anise or licorice. So if you go to the Absinthe House, exactly,
it's unbelievable. If you ever go there and they have the whole fire and the sugar cube, it's a crazy thing.
Exactly,
but, it's a little much for me. But I've had them. I've had them all. I think.
Yep.
You're more of a daiquiri guy. You can go any daiquiri
daiquiris
bar.
are amazing. Yeah. A little lime. Yeah.
And they have drive-through daiquiri bars in New Orleans.
Really?
So you can literally drive through and they'll give it to you through the drive-through window, but they keep the straw in it with the lid on, so it's like not an open container.
I was going to say, I'm like, I don't know.
Who can figure that out? It's closed. I can't drink this, right? Yeah.
Digression aside, your father being an enlisted Marine, did he at all ever talk to you about going the enlisted route, or for him was college the kind of intended route?
Yeah, because he came back and went to college himself. I think a bunch of his buddies did it, and they did the reserves, right? So between high school and college, this is 57, so it's before Vietnam, but a bunch of his buddies did it. I think they needed money, and that was kind of the deal. And he went to Spring Hill College. But so college was always, it was not really like he pushed that. College was happening in one way or another. Yeah, he definitely did not push, even encourage. But when I joined the Marine Corps, he was, the proudest guy. I'll put it this way. He was so proud that when I had my kids, my dad called himself Grandpa General. He's like, I'm always outranking you no matter what you are. Even though I was only a Lance Corporal, I'm a general, so Grandpa General, like my kids called him. So
that's
pretty
awesome.
Funny. Yeah.
That's very funny. So you get into college, walk on there. How did that even happen? Were you just were you aiming for that? Did they scout you? Or
yeah, it was I'd say a preferred walk-on. So they knew I was coming.
Got it.
So I did it fully intending to be on the team, and I did. I walked on, but I realized pretty quickly I wasn't very good. Well, I mean, I say I wasn't very good. College football is very different than high school football. I was really good at my fraternity house.
Yep.
So I was an All-American there, and I was not an All-American on the football field. And my priorities were not in tune with what I needed to do to play in college football. But I will say this too. I mean, I do feel like you, as a walk-on player, you don't necessarily get the well, I mean, again, the coaches are invested in the guys that they gave scholarships to. Part of their, performance is like, hey, are you a good recruiter? And if you are overperforming as a walk-on compared to a scholarship player, they may not be as likely to even play you just because they're not invested in you as much, so right? So there's a little bit of that, right? So there were times when I'm like, I'm here every day. I'm practicing my ass off. Yeah. I'm in the gym working out. These guys are kind of slacking off. They can't. But how can they not see that? But I think they were. You had to like go above and beyond if you wanted to get that shot. I was good, but I wasn't clearly 3 times as good. Right, walk on. Like my roommate, he stayed around all 4 years, and eventually he's a quarterback. He was walk on too, but he ended up like being the holder on the extra points his senior year. I'm like, I'm good. After a year and a half, I'm like, I realize that this is not what I'm not going to play in the NFL. Yeah. I don't have the passion drive to do it, and I didn't feel like I didn't have a fair chance, but it was just not. I was good. I was happy I did it. A great experience, but it was not for me. Yeah.
That makes it's funny. I'm. Oh man, oatmeal cookie in the back of the throat. A little dry. Good. No complaints to the chef, but a little dry. I'm always fascinated about like misaligned incentives, right? And I think that's a perfect example of. I get why that system's in place. You have to be able to measure something somehow. Yep. But then obviously puts other people in a disadvantage because there's an incentive for the coach. Right. The recruiter wants to show that they're value add, right? Exactly. And that's a big part of their. I mean, that's probably the bigger part in some people's eyes is how good a recruiter are you? And if you're bringing in talent that's not doing that great, maybe you're not going to be the coach next year. And I will say, I mean, being able to identify that it just wasn't worth that like 3 times the effort and focusing in another place. I really appreciate that or you saying that because that's how I felt in certain parts of my college career where in the military you're all about like never quit. If you start something, always see it all the way through. But I do think there is nuance to that where when you're in the what I'll call quote unquote the regular world or the civilian world, you have that freedom and flexibility to choose where you allocate your energy. And I think that's really, really important because for me, I joined a fraternity, I joined the polo club. I was doing all these various things and certain aspects I really enjoyed, but then realized I couldn't commit 100% to all of it. Yep. So then you have to go, where's this going? Yep. And do I actually want to keep pursuing this or should I let this go so I can then pursue these other things? 100%. I think I said, if I wanted to do football, you really can't do football and fraternity and academics. I mean, some people can. I didn't, if I'm all in for something, and especially with fraternity, I was all in for that. And I ended up being a social chairman and getting very involved in that. I was much prepared for that, coming from New Orleans, I think, as well. So I had a good background. So, and the toga parties, I assume, were amazing. All the above. We actually started a Crawfish party when I was there. That still goes on to this day. Nice. So yes, I definitely left a mark, and it was fun. Actually, another thing that I'm appreciative of is New Orleans Crawfish parties. As a Swede, we also have crawfish parties where we wear funny hats and then sing songs and drink aquavit. So there's a commonality, different type of crawfish. We do it with dill and we serve them cold. And then obviously, I think the New Orleans crawfish roll. I thought they were herring, wasn't it? So we serve it with pickled herring as well. So pickled herring, potatoes, hardtack bread, and then a big crawfish. I was stationed over in Bosnia, and we had all these international intel centers there, but the Swedes were there, and they
had one of their festival days was there, and they brought out the aquavit and the herring and the thing, and it was a little rough. It wasn't. Yeah,
I should have brought it.
I'll stick with the boiled crawfish. I know what I'm getting there. Like I'm a master of appealing them, but yeah, that was a little rough.
Full circle. When I was pledging for the fraternity, I was 23 or 24 at the time and already been in the Army. So for me, I was like, this is nothing.
I got this. Yeah.
But they had actually brought out, we were, doing circles or whatever. They brought out pickled herring as a,
to haze you.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Not hazing, purely optional, allegedly. Don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Right.
But I just see it. I go, dude, you just saved me $8.
I love it. I'm so fired. Can I have yours? Yeah.
I ate the whole jar myself. I go, dude, this is a delicacy.
Great.
I'm a big fan.
This guy. That's really funny.
But college, military, not really on your mind. When does it start to get under your mind?
It's my senior year, second semester. This is 1989.
Got it.
It's 88, the stock market had crashed. It wasn't a great time in the economy. Most of my buddies were going back to business school or law school. And I'm like, school I graduated in 4 years, but college was not my class part. I was there for the fun. I was really good at that. I was bartending and just living my best life. And I'm walking back from class one day at the library, and I saw a Marine recruiter standing in front of the library. And I'm like, oh yeah, your dad was a Marine. Maybe I'll check this thing out. And I started talking to him, and he's like, yeah, this is the deal. This is this, ever heard of this thing, Officer Candidate School? I'm like, no, I really hadn't. He's like, well, if you're interested, this is, that's how it started. I literally saw the guy stand in front of the bookstore, and that's really how it all began. And then it ended up being a little bit tricky because my recruiter, I guess, or my initial contact was in Charlottesville, Virginia. And then I graduated in May of '89 and went back to New Orleans. And then it just slowed things down a little bit. Yeah. But that's how it all happened. We totally just saw the guy, and I'm like, I'm going to give this thing a shot. And people thought, they're like, Higgins, you're going there. If you knew me in college, you would be shocked.
Let's get up some old photos of you
definitely.
in college.
Oh my gosh, I got some of those bad boys. They're around.
The incriminating images.
Thank goodness there weren't cell phones back then, right?
Exactly.
But, yeah.
I'm guessing he was wearing the dress blues.
Dress blues.
Out of 10, how much was that?
I mean, I definitely look good standing there. I'm like this. And you have this. I think there's always. I'm a football player, so you have this idea that you like being on teams. This is going to be. And I really thought, okay, I'll do this for 4 years.
Yeah.
I'll get out. Then I'll go back and get my MBA and be a doctor or a lawyer, whatever my mom wants me to be. Right. But yeah, that's how it all started. Just literally seeing the recruiter stand in front of the library. Yeah. Crazy.
We can cut this part out. I'm going to preface that. I read online, I did a little bit of research, and you had brought up in one interview that your dad had a company that went into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Did that shake up at all? I guess, when did that happen? And did that influence you at all in terms of seeing the military as some sort of stability and job security, or did it not?
Yeah, really that's a great question and true. So yeah, my when I came back home after my first semester of college, we had actually lost our house.
Wow.
So my dad's in bankruptcy, and I think my dad had hidden it very well and didn't want it to impact us, and we knew things were not great, but he covered it over pretty well. So, but it was weird because my focus was just so much on college. Like I almost tuned it all out, I didn't really think about it. And I don't even think that the Marine Corps was necessarily something I thought of as an escape. It seemed like something like, all right, this is going to be a good fit for me.
Right.
Looking for that team, looking for that camaraderie, looking for that way to challenge myself. Having been a football player, having played a little rugby, I'm going to join the next team, and then figure it out. But yeah, that was a tough I think my biggest, and I look back on it now and I see it more. But for me personally, I guess I wish I would have known there was problems earlier, because I feel like I could have done more to fix it.
Right.
And I probably couldn't have, but I think as the oldest boy and of 5 kids, there's part of me that always is like, man, I wish I could have done more to not have my mom and dad have to go through all of that.
Right.
But could you, and really, could I have? Probably not. You know, would he have wanted me to not go to college and run the family business? You know, like Jimmy Stewart didn't go on his trip, right? Because the whole thing from It's a Wonderful Life coming. I don't think that's what my dad would have wanted. I feel confident it's not.
Right.
But part of me always is like, what if? What if it?
The
right?
retrospective, like going through the scenarios.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, totally.
What was your decisioning on the job you picked for the Marines? So I guess which job did you pick, and were you looking at a few different options?
So I was an intelligence officer. Some say the ultimate oxymoron is Marine intelligence, right? It's interesting the way they do it in the Marine Corps. For those that don't know, when you're going through basic school, so it's a 6-month process for every Marine officer goes through it. They want to have a quality spread of what the military occupational specialties are that the Marines go into, right? So what they do is, so we had 180 people in our basic school class. They take the 1 through 60, 61 through 120, 121 through 180. So the person that finishes number 1 in the class gets the first pick, but number 61 gets the second pick, and 121 gets the third pick. Because they don't want, 178, 179, and 180 to be motor T, right? They want to have good people in every MOS. Mm-hmm. So I was very fortunate that I finished at the top of the second third, or close to the top of the second third, and I was able to get an intelligence. We had 3 slots for intelligence in my TBS class, and I picked one of those because just for lucky in a lot of ways. But I really thought I'd be infantry. I mean, infantry was where I was kind of focused on initially, and I mean, I kind of seemed like what you do in the Marine Corps. But then when they had this chance to be actually signals intelligence. I chose that not really knowing what it was. I mean, I knew, all right, signals, I'm pretty intelligent. Yeah. That sounded pretty good. And that's how it all happened. So it was not something that I went into thinking I would do in the Marine Corps. I mean, I think everyone kind of thinks they're going to be infantry, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I assumed I would do. But obviously just, the path you lead is, you never know how the road's going to turn out, right?
Yeah.
So
How many people were in your class or group?
You say 180 officers. 180 officers in Delta Company of 90 at basic school.
Got it. So, I mean, if there's only 3 slots, it really is a little bit of a luck of the draw.
Crapshoot. And you really don't know until because they factor in academics, athletics, your evaluations from your peers and all that. And I never knew exactly how the math worked out, but just when it did work out, I was in a great spot to be able to pick, basically whatever I wanted. And that's why I was, just really blessed to have that happen. Yeah, but lucky. I mean, truly lucky. Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason that I didn't get. If I get this many points on this test, just at the end of the day, you're picking 4th Higgins. Yeah. What do you want? Or 5th. Yeah, sweet.
I might be over psychoanalyzing this, which I definitely do. If anyone's seen any of these podcasts, I definitely overthink a lot of things. But do you think the military teaches people to be okay? I guess our okayness or our perception of luck and how the dice kind of roll. Do you think the military prepares you for that in life a little bit more, in the sense of why did I get stationed in the 173rd in Italy? Probably some factors, but it also could have just been a complete luck of the draw. I had no idea, or you getting that, of 3 out of 180.
It's. I guess it's. I mean, I don't know that you make your luck. I do believe you can make your own luck, and we work hard.
Yeah.
You're going to be lucky, right? But it's not really lucky because you're working hard. You make luck that way. This was truly lucky. I think it's more you bloom where you're planted.
Yeah.
Right, I didn't expect that, but ended up being a perfect fit for me. Getting stationed in certain places, my first tour was in Camp Lejeune. I think I wanted Hawaii, but or Camp Pendleton, but North Carolina. I mean, it all kind of works out for a reason. I don't know. It's like Forrest Gump, right? I mean, you never know how that feather is going to blow in the wind. You just gotta roll with it and make the best of it and just go. I don't know.
During your officer training course, How was it? Did you feel prepared for it? Did it kind of come to a shock? I mean, I feel like some athletic.
Yeah. So, I went, so initially I did, so the way it worked for us, I went to Officer Candidate School, because I was not an ROTC in college, right? So a 10-week Officer Candidate School where they really are trying to weed out people. I think we started with 80 and graduated 40 or something like that. It was a pretty significant cut down of who made it through the training. That 10 weeks was very physically demanding, marching and up early. It's like boot camp for officers, right? Yeah. So it's pretty harsh. I think I was fortunate in that I rolled right from Officer Candidate School, had a weekend off, and I started basic school. Wow. Most people of in the basic school class had been out for a while. Mm-hmm. They'd been back home for a few months waiting their slots. So I was like in great shape. I was, we used to getting up early, and I got to basic school and they actually let us you have a beer at night? You can go out. Wow. It wasn't like you weren't on lockdown you were at Officer Candidate School. So for me, it felt like freedom. Yeah. And I'm like, this is great. And I mean, I joked to my buddies in college. I was still in college. I'm like, this Marine Corps thing is awesome. It's like college with guns and money. They pay me. I shoot guns. And we
get to work out. I don't pay a gym membership.
This is awesome. I mean, and the academics were, I mean, again, it's not UVA. The Marine Corps, it was pretty much like memorize this stuff. Like, I got this. This is easy, man. And I think I was a natural. I guess leadership. I liked being in leadership roles. I always liked being in charge anyway. So for me, it was, I had fun. It was kind of, to me, pretty good time. We roll up to DC and we're, go out in the field and doing camping, and it was great. Eating MREs. It's awesome.
That's awesome. And you beat me to it. So you went not heated on the MRE, it looks like.
I went not. I never was patient enough, I feel like, in my time. Well, they didn't have heaters initially when I joined. And then I just eat them cold. I don't know. At that point, I just kind of, so many guys, and you probably saw this too, there's some guys that were just MRE chefs. They knew you can get the thing from number 5 and 22 and you make this potion. I'm like, hell with that. I'm just eating it. I'm like, come on, give me. I'm going after it. Yeah.
We've had a few cooking sessions on the podcast.
Yeah, I am not that guy. I am eating it cold and happily. So yeah.
The extent of my chefness would be just like breaking everything apart. So doing a combination, like if I had the tortillas, I'd rip it apart and then throw it into the bag. Yeah. So it becomes kind of more of a
batch,
full meal.
Little batch. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You do basic, then officer training course. I'm going to mess up all the verbiage
here. Officer candidate school, then basic school.
Yep. How long is that in terms of
like 9 months? It was 10 weeks or 10 weeks officer candidate school. So call it 3 months. Mm-hmm. Basic school is 6 months, and then when you get your MOS, you have to go to your MOS training.
Got it.
So as a signals intelligence officer, we had to go to communication school for 3 months, and then intelligence school for another 3 months. So it's I'm over a year of training just to get into the fleet and be ready to kind of start doing your thing, right? Yeah.
And you had a 5-year contract?
I think it was 4. I think it was only 4. Yeah.
So a quarter of your time is in training.
Is all training. Yeah.
I guess we're both coughing here. Yeah. When you get to the fleet, tell me about that transition, especially a full year of training. TRADOC and fleet is very different.
I think it's I mean, you're a second lieutenant, so there's a lot of people making fun of everybody knows the jokes of second lieutenants. They don't know. I think they're like,
how often do you get lost?
Right. Help the little guy out, and so but you are clueless, right? You're there, and there's because you really hadn't spent much time with Marines. Right. All your time was with your peers, other lieutenants. But then to have, these sergeants and corporals and brand new Marines that you're in charge of, it was awesome, but a little bit intimidating. You're kind of am I ready for this? Am I, you're in charge of this platoon all of a sudden, and I'm, a 22-year-old kid still myself. I'm not much older than them, and it's a little bit intimidating. But I think I felt like you want to do the right thing. Yeah. Do you feel like you have the tools to be successful? Yeah. And the analogy I make often when I talk about leadership is I think as a second lieutenant, I had a one tool toolbox. Yeah. There was open it up and there was a hammer in there, and that's kind of what you did, right? Over time, you're constantly adding, a screwdriver and a wrench and a this and all these special. By the time you're a colonel, you know how to deal with every situation because you've seen it all before.
Yeah.
So you know that you have the leadership tools to be successful. But when you show up initially, you're pretty clueless because you just haven't. You don't know, you have one technique and that's it, right? Yeah. So I think that's the hardest part, was just almost like a imposter syndrome. Like, these guys have been in for 5 years or, whatever it is. And I'm like, why are they listening to me? Well, you're the officer. They listen to you. That you better figure it the F out,
How do you build the confidence in the interim, right? Because you obviously get more confident as you're in the role for longer.
Yep.
But at the same time, I guess you need to be able to present yourself in the interim in a way that is still professional, that you can still instill confidence within those around you. So how do you balance being relatively ignorant, and not in the derogatory term, but just in the sense of you don't know,
you are. Yeah,
while still maintaining a level of professionalism and confidence within the soldiers or Marines?
I think the thing that I always tried to be was just super transparent. Like, don't bullshit the Marines. Like, if you treat them with respect and put them first in every decision you make, do it for the benefit of the Marines. Vice trying to make yourself look good, and ask their opinion and listen to them. And now you make the call at the end of the day, but get their input, see where their heads are at, and make decisions that are going to put them in the best position to be successful. You can't go wrong, right? So that was, my approach was to, just talk to the guy, figure, what's working, what's not working. I remember what would you do in this situation? I'm just, and how they done it before, what worked, and just kind of just asking questions and being curious. And Ted Lasso, right? Be curious, right? Not judgmental, and just try to not be don't be your own worst enemy and just come across as a hole. Yeah. Try to appreciate the Marine. And I probably went maybe a little bit. And probably my fault was probably being almost too friendly. Like, all right, let's go have beers together. They're like my boys. They're like, they don't. And you realize they don't want to be your boy.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, you're the officer. We're the Marines. Like, there's trying to find that balance. I think is hard initially when you first get in, because you are closer in age to them than your senior leader officers. Yeah. And to you, like the senior, like the majors and the colonel, they seem old and like not that fun. They're married and we're like young lieutenants. Like, the Marines are having fun. I go in the barracks for them and party, So I think you just have to learn what the balance is of taking care of the Marines, understanding that you are the one that makes the call and at the end of the day are responsible for the success and failure in a lot of ways. But if you always put the Marines first and have their best interest at heart, they see that and will work their ass off for you. I think that's really what it comes down. And when you're out in the field, like do the, lift the tent and drive the stakes and, burn the shitter. Like do that stuff. And they're like, that's how you get respect, is because you're not just like saying do it, you're actually doing it, and that's sounds simple, but not everyone does it that way, Yeah,
it's funny because I notice more inexperienced leaders tend to think confidence is just making decisions, where if they go, I have to have the final say, or I need to be very firm on every single thing, it almost has the opposite effect of, you're not confident, so you're kind of overcompensating by not asking questions and not being curious, and you feel like you need to know all the answers, where I've noticed the more confident leaders tend to be the ones that go, I actually don't know. Can you explain this
help me on
me?
This thing. Right?
Or let me get a better picture of what's going on so that I can make an informed decision.
I think I would say 100% agree with that. I think one advantage I have also, I'm 6'5", right? I'm a good athlete. So you have the command I didn't feel like I think there are guys, buddies of mine that, little, like they feel like they have to, like the Napoleon complex kind of thing. I need to be tougher or strong. So it was easy for me to just kind of I'm good, right? I wasn't worried about that part of it, so you didn't have to think about that. So you could focus on the leadership pieces of it and trying to get smarter and again, just trying to take care of your Marine. It's very simple. You take care of them, they'll take care of you. I mean, it's hard to do, simple concept, hard to enact. Yeah.
Servant leadership. So there's so many times in my service that just have stuck with me for the longest time. My first team leader, Sergeant Gagliardo, I don't believe that if he's not okay with me calling him out or whatnot. I remember I was on a training rotation in Germany and I forgot, there's 2 times. One, I forgot my Kevlar on a training mission, and he just gave me his like a Kevlar helmet. And some commander came up or whatever and yelled at him. I mean, he smoked me afterwards. Yeah. But he goes,
he took it.
He took it, didn't throw me under the bus, gave me his so that I was protected. And then I remember every time we'd go to the dining facility, if we were, chatting about something, I'd be like, oh, you can go in front of me. He's like, no, like you're the lower and let you go in front, like you eat first, which sounds so simple and cliche. And I think some people might see that as theatrics or whatever, but it's really does. It's
leaders eat last. That's just how it is. Yeah.
And just like countless more stories, which have like stuck with me even to this day, where in the civilian world, okay, fine, nobody's missing their Kevlar or, there's no real dining facility, but I always just try to say, if I have employees, how do I make sure they're taken care of first and ensuring that they're comfortable, that they're happy? Sometimes I have to be the bad guy. Sometimes there are deadlines. Sometimes we do really have to push hard. But in those terms, how do I make sure I don't make it harder on them?
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I mean, I certainly hope I kind of lived that way in my military career. Although I definitely, I think I was not the greatest Marine. I just had a lot of. I'll give you a story. So I had been at my best friend's, my high school best buddies got married when I was in the Marine Corps. I fly off to the wedding. I get back and my leave shit doesn't expire till 08 on Monday morning. And I had like flown in I got an early flight. I rented a car and I drove right to 2nd Radio Battalion where I was stationed, and I had forgotten, I don't think I was even actually briefed, that there was an Inspector General inspection going on that morning when I rolled up. And I got there at like 6:30 thinking I was going to be able to shower and like my uniform, I was hungover, and they're already lined up for PT. Yeah. And everybody's out there in their green and green. And I'm rolling out of my truck, not shaven, have no gear, no nothing. And they're like, Higgins, they need you right here. And I'm like, what the God? I said, sir, I'm not even, I'm supposed to pass till 08. What's going on? So then I'm running around. I said, because it's the Marines, it's the barracks, the Marines. I lived like another half an hour away. So I didn't have my PT gear. So I'm trying to find PT gear. And I all the Marines are already lined up out there. So I found this Marine, and he was a size medium. Yeah. And I am not medium. I'm XL. So I put on like a medium pair of green PT shirt and a medium T-shirt. I looked like a half shirt, and like it was horrible. When I'm out there doing my sit-ups, it's like not a pretty thing, and pull-ups with a half shirt. And my company commander was like livid. Like you could see his face, like I'm embarrassing him. I'm like, I don't think I'm even supposed to be here, but if you want, this is what I got. So, and the Marines are howling, laughing, and I'm like, so you have to like those kind of things where like he and I got in a lot of trouble with my boss at the time, but I obviously survived it. But it's like, hey, look, this is what you got. I'm going with it. So,
I say that's intuition. That's adaptation,
overcoming it. You could have told me it's all good. You were on. I was like, I literally had. I was like, I have my leave sheet. I swear. Well, it's when I rescinded. I'm like, there's no email. Like, oh well.
I have to imagine that if he's still around, he's laughing about live it in the moment. But he's probably
we have laughed since then. But at the time, he was like. Oh, it was not pretty. I knew I was going to be in trouble. I ran really fast. I was like, oh shit. I better do well.
Score's better. Exactly. So you can at least be like, well, listen.
Exactly.
You have a 4-year contract. Spoiler, you end up doing 25.
Yeah.
What happened? What changed?
Yeah. It's so this is early 90s. So at the Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps, still the kind of the our pinnacle or our most we have a MU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit, right? And I was able to go out on a MU on ship, forward deployed, and went into Somalia. So this is 92 time frame.
Got it.
Right? So going to Somalia, did a real world mission, right? And just found that I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the mission. So at that point, I was like, okay, I want to see if I can potentially make this or a career, or at least stay in longer than my initial contract. It was a very challenging time because at the time, in the early mid 90s, the whole military was cutting back dramatically. So in the Marine Corps, as an officer, you had to get, if you didn't come in through the Naval Academy, or you had to get called augmented, is what they call it. You had to become like, you came in, I came in as a reserve officer technically. To be a regular officer and stay in, you had to get only a handful of percentage of people were able to do that.
It's almost like the walk-on.
It's a great analogy. You get the full scholarship. Exactly right. So you had to apply for augmentation, which I did. I got extended for a few years, then I got fully augmented, like in the late 90s. But yeah, it really became. I think that being deployed and actually, doing what you were trained to do, being part of a team that did that, just kind of gave me the all right, I like this. This is pretty good. I think I can see this potentially being, if not, I don't ever thought of it as 25 years then, but I want to do more, a little more of this and see where it leads. Yeah.
It's funny's not the right word. Sometimes I talk to people and they wonder why service members want to deploy or want to go do things. And they go, well, isn't it dangerous? And blah, blah, blah. And I don't think, there's probably some people out there who are just addicted to the combat or the stressors or what have you. But a lot of it comes down to just, I'm doing my job and I feel like I'm having an impact, 100%. Which is a very different thing and can be applied to the civilian world and everything else. It's just, I feel like I'm contributing somehow. I'm serving, right?
Yes.
Like I am giving back.
Yeah. I mean, when you're back in the States, you're training, it's fine. Yeah. But if you're just training to train and you're stuck in whatever base you're at, there's no real life edge to it, right? Yeah. I mean, I think there's, but whether it's the adrenaline or not, it's just I am in a place overseas representing my country, and I think that's what I always say, look, I love the fact, I mean, I did 8 deployments, right? Yeah. I loved all of them. And I the fact that I had to do a lot of away games, that was great. That's where I was happy to do that, because that means that you ask people back here could be happy and be oblivious to it and just, do their thing, but I love my time deployed. Yeah. Totally.
Your first deployment, Somalia, what I find fascinating, I think you are the first guest, and we can fact check this or whether or not this is true, that have basically been a part of every single major conflict in the past 20 something years.
Yeah.
You have Somalia, you have Kosovo, you have the Gulf War, you have Afghanistan in 2001, Iraq in 2003. Did you see anything that had changed between those? And I can imagine going from more traditional warfare to coin operations, but then also what were there similarities between what the Marine Corps was in the 90s to what it is today?
A couple things I would say, and yes, for sure, there were some massive changes, especially from like the beginning. The first time I went into Afghanistan was right after 9/11. So it's probably worth telling the story. So on 9/11, I'm on a different MU at this point in time. So this is 10 years after I'd been in Somalia. We're out on ship. We're doing the exercise in Darwin, Australia, when 9/11 happened. So I'm in Australia on 9/11. We actually just finished playing a rugby match. We're in the bar, whatever. It's like 12 hours later there, right? Yeah. So it's evening in Darwin. We're in the bar, kind of post rugby match, and we see again towers, planes flying in. And we're like, we don't know what's going on, but we're out. We're out here to do something, and we think, right? So we head back to the ship, pack up, and this is again, obviously, it's September 11th of 2001. We were in Afghanistan by November of that year.
Wow.
So in November of 2001 was when I first went into Afghanistan. Although we stopped, pretty interesting story, we actually stopped in East Timor on the way.
Wow.
And did a humanitarian relief exercise as people were kind of figuring out what was going on in Afghanistan. People didn't know right away. It took a while to figure out who's Osama bin Laden. I mean, like that was kind of like, what the heck happened, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but so minor stop in East Timor where we dropped off relief supplies to include things that churches donated, to include thigh masters. That was probably very funny. I'm not sure the East Timorese need the bag of thigh masters, but they did have those. Kind of funny. But the biggest change I would say, again, so we got into Afghanistan in November of 2001, and we were just, again, we were the cutting edge of the Marine Corps. But, you know, we were very reliant on paper maps still and a lot of old school technology. And I remember us getting augmented by the first drone and having one feed for it. And it was like a national asset, you know? I mean, this is like, something we didn't even, they gave us people and a feed to a live drone. I'm like, wow, we were, because we were the only game in town at that time, you know? So to see that, and again, as an intel officer in particular, I saw it from the intelligence, capabilities that we had in the Marine Corps then. By the time I left, I mean, everybody had drones, everything was electronic. I'll never forget the first time I ever saw a thumb drive. It was the JROTC, the Air Force JROTC came in with them. Like, this is awesome. We're doing like discs. Just the technology advances were massive from 2001 to when I got out. I mean, it's hard to believe that we didn't have before. I mean, literally, we were going from disk drives to all of a sudden this thumb drive thing. I'm like, this is the greatest thing of all. Then I obviously got banned later on, but for a while that was like, wow. So yeah.
It's crazy. Funny you bring up the JROTC because that's listen, I love the Army. I love my units. Part of me was like, man, if only I went JROTC, because as a forward observer, anytime we worked with the JROTCs, I would have, and I can't remember what it's called, the plurf or whatever, it was this gigantic laser rangefinder or rangefinder. And, it weighed 10 pounds or whatever. And then they would take out of their little pocket.
Yeah, the binocular size thing.
Yeah. Goes, I got the range. I'm like,
they had the coolest gear, dude. We were very, very jealous. So that was the biggest change. And again, I don't think the weaponry changed that much, but from an intelligence collection standpoint, and to be able to get and share data very quickly was a massive change from 2001 to when I got out.
And I might be getting my years incorrect, but I believe Kosovo was the late 90s. Were you?
Yeah, I was there. I was in Kosovo in 98.
98.
But it started before that and went a little longer than that. But yeah, and we weren't by the time we were there, it was pretty well calm.
Yeah.
And I was in downtown Sarajevo working in Bosnia as part of I was stationed at NSA at the time, National Security Agency, and we had a little SIGINT collection, like a joint or a combined team. So we had Brits and French and German, I think the three, and us in like a little combined thing. Trying to share intelligence kind of thing over there. So yeah.
Is there a big difference between Kosovo was not quite a humanitarian mission, but it was more of a peacekeeping mission, right? I think had air assets. Did you have a different mindset going there compared to Afghanistan, where it is a more formal, quote unquote, like invasion?
Yeah, it was definitely more. You didn't feel as threatened when you're in Bosnia. We were. You could go out into the streets of Sarajevo and kind of drive around and felt pretty safe. It's just you and a couple other people, you were fine. Yeah. You had to carry a pistol, but it wasn't like you were like a convoy and locked down, And I think there were operations that Special Forces folks were doing, trying to target they had a couple, Bosnian or Serbian leaders they were targeting. That was happening. So there were some kinetic operations, but relatively speaking, it was more about just keeping an eye on an uneasy state and not letting the Croats and the Serbs and the Bosniaks, like just making sure they were all kind of getting along. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, because some of the, I mean, reading the history and when the fighting was going on, it was horrible. Like some of the worst stories you've ever heard.
Yeah.
And again, I couldn't tell. I mean, I can't tell a Serb from a, from a Croat, from a Bosnian. And they were neighbors, and all of a sudden they were killing. It was just, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe.
It's very interesting. And I mean, I was in Croatia 2013 just for fun on a vacation in Brunswick, and I did this little bike tour. And let's just say, there's still some contention with them and the Montenegrins. And obviously things are very peaceful there now, but there is still a lot of resentment and or tension, I guess.
Yes, there's an underlying, they'll be there forever. I mean, it's a history of that place, that the creation of Sarajevo as a whole is, or, of Yugoslavia as a whole was not, it was smushed together, right, by the, with people that were enemies years ago, and it just, it erupted, obviously. So and that will go on forever. Yeah.
It's maybe different for you, one, as an officer, and then two, probably more so as a signals officer or signal intelligence officer. How much were you tracking the geopolitical implications of what you were doing in the sense of, we are going after a major terrorist cell. They used to be the Mujahideen, who I guess how much was that being wrapped up? Because for me, at least, at 18, 19 years old, I think a lot of it went over my head. I think I understood the basics. I was alive and knew of 2001 and the impact it had on me. But the implications and everything going on, I think I was able to process later on, but as somebody who's, I guess, more deeply tied into the intelligence,
I think that's one of the nice things about being an intel guy is that your job is always relevant. Mm-hmm. Even if you're back in the States, you're trying to stay current on, events overseas and just being tuned into it and be aware of it, because you never know where the next conflict's going to break out, right? So, but to be deployed, especially, you are very much tuned into intricacies and trying to understand culture and the history, and that's what you have to be, that guy, right? Where your average infantry officer, like, they need to be prepared for the fight, but they don't need to know the why, the history. Some guys care, don't be wrong, but most of them, I'll never forget, when we were on ship heading to Somalia, we did this little joke thing. We'd grab Marines in the passageway of the ship and like, hey, can you put Somalia on a map? And most of them had no idea where they were even going. Yeah. We're on this ship and we're going to do Marine things. Yep. And we're going to Somalia. They knew that, but they did literally map. Yep. No clue where they were going.
It's on the coast.
On the coast. One of them. Maybe, we're on a ship. It's got to be close enough, right? So it's just your mindset is very different when you're an intel guy, because every day you can have a real world or just information, being aware. Yeah.
How do you become a subject matter expert, or at least knowledgeable about something that quickly? Because the politics of Kosovo and Bosnia are very different than that of Somalia, that of Afghanistan, and that of Iraq. Are you just reading? Do you get briefed?
Yeah.
I mean, how are you constantly?
I think you try. I remember before I deployed over to Sarajevo, there's a great book called Balkan Ghosts, right? That talked about the history of Yugoslavia and why it broke up and why it was going to be a powder keg forever, right? So trying to read. And then again, I think the current names is in intel reporting, right? You don't know, you can understand the geopolitical aspects of the countries and what kind of the background of them were. Like going to Somalia, for example, understanding who had been there, like the Italians that had a big footprint there prior to, and understanding that piece of it helps you then shape where the current warlords and what they're fighting over, and just the history matters, though. They all know the history of or at least their version of history, which they're fighting about.
Were you always that curious, in the sense of innately, did you always have that curiosity about countries and the influences that other countries have had on them, or do you think that the military instilled that into you, or some sort of combination?
Probably a combination. I was a government major, international relations major in college. The focus was on Western Europe, so I did study that in college. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I don't know that I was necessarily a huge student of history that way. But I think then when you join the military, you read about, you read Sun Tzu and you read some of these other, just the Clausewitz, the military thinkers, and try to, just again, and even you hear General Mattis talk, just understanding history is so important, understanding and being successful today,
Why do you think military intelligence gets a bad rap? Is it, and to some extent, it is just a joke.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of it is just, it's really freaking hard.
Yeah.
Like intelligence is just inherently very difficult. You're relying on sources that could just be incorrect. How much of it is, you're putting very young individuals in a role and hoping that they can figure it out versus, this is just inherently a very tricky game.
It is hard. I don't know that the military has the best resources or best, especially at the lower levels. Like if you go to the CIA or go to DIA, they have a lot more resources and access to information than you're going to be able to get down to like the actual troops at the brigade, battalion, company level, right? So a lot of times there's information out there that you just are not privy to. So you're kind of flying in the dark, and you're typically you're responsible for what, 5 kilometer area in this area town you're in, which means you probably don't care about the politics or you just want to know, where are my guys going to hit an IED, right? That's very different intelligence than what's going on with the king and this and it's just your focus is different. So it's, again, maybe you can seem to be not that intelligent about information or intelligence because your view of the world is just different as a 19-year-old at the battalion level, right?
You do 25 years.
Yeah.
Obviously at 25, you can't really, I guess you can maybe get to 30 somehow, but what was the kind of tail end of your career and how did you start thinking about the transition process?
Yeah, it's a great question. For me, I was, my last tour, I was in Camp Lejeune. I was in 06 Command. So I had Headquarters Battalion, 2nd Marine Division. And a lot of it had to do with my family. I have 5 kids, and my oldest daughter, who just got married last Saturday, by the way. It was great.
Oh, congrats.
She just finished her freshman year of high school, the year that I was getting ready to finish my command. It was one of those inflection points in life, right? Like, I had done 06 Command. I knew if the Marine Corps wanted me to stick around, it meant moving to DC, trying to chase becoming a flag officer if I wanted to do that, which I certainly could have done and had that opportunity. I'd done all the right jobs up till then. But the idea of moving the family and probably have to moving during my daughter's, I'd move her from her freshman to sophomore year, then probably again sometime before she's a senior, living in DC. I'm like, and just the jobs themselves, it sounds almost trite. This is what I tell people, and I think most people will tell you, when you know.
Yeah.
And I just knew. I'm like, I've way overachieved. I thought I was going to do 4 years. I was a knucklehead. The fact that I made colonel is just a miracle for a host of reasons. But timing and hard, just it all worked out in the path to get where I'm at. I had a blessed career. I just knew, I didn't want to. Maybe I don't know if I had lost the. It's like I could have done it, but it just wasn't as exciting anymore, and the priorities changed. Yeah. I was just ready for the next challenge in the civilian world, I think, and it was just time. So I had a change of command in the morning, and I retired in the afternoon.
Wow,
same day. It was awesome, and I felt, I think my wife was like, "Are you gonna?" Like, she's like, "Do you miss it?" I'm like, "I don't. I loved it, but that chapter is closed, and I loved my time in, but no regrets." Yeah,
I was gonna say, the family aspect must be, it adds a complexity to it, right?
100%.
Kids moving on around all the time, and to some extent, I would assume they maybe get used to it. I moved around a bunch when I was a kid. Not due to the military, we just happened to move a bunch. But I guess, and you don't have to answer this or we can just skip it, but I guess how do you contextualize that to children who are like, Dad, why are we moving around every 2 years?
And I think the younger you are, I think there's goodness in moving your kids when they're younger, up till high school, right? Because it teaches them resiliency. It forces them to have to make friends and just kind of, I think there's definitely a goodness to it. The pros outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
At some point though, and I saw it with friends of mine who had daughters especially, that if you move a high school age girl, it's just they have enough going on. And if you can give them that stability, I think that was part of like, I owe it to, they've been doing this for me for a long time. It's time for me to do something for them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I'm good, you know, like, and let's settle down, give my daughter, my whole family the stability, because the boys are getting ready to go to high school too. Like, so, and it was just, that was important. More and more important to me as the more senior I got.
When you do transition, did you know what was coming next, or was it let me catch my breath and breathe a little bit? Or
that's a great question too. You know, so I didn't know, and but I really and I probably started too late to be candid, because I'd been deployed pretty soon before I got out of the military. I was actually deployed, so I probably started later than I would have liked to when it comes to my transition process. But I embraced it and I enjoyed it, and part of that is just my personality. Right. And what I tell anyone that's getting out, like, hey, there's a great TED talk about 50 cups of coffee, right? You know, it's like it's networking, you know. And I use this phrase now all the time when I talk at these veteran panels, like, you know, there's only one letter difference between networking and not working. Yeah. So if you better be networking, or you're not be not working pretty quickly, right? So I just started calling friends of mine, like, hey, you know, buddies from high school, buddy from college, family friends, Marines friends that had gotten out, and just saying, hey, all right, I'm thinking about, I'm retiring in a few months. You're in commercial real estate. What do you do? I get it. You sell buildings. Like, but what does that mean? I have no idea what it's like to be in commercial. You're in bank. What does that mean? Like, I mean, like, just trying to understand what people's day jobs really were and catching up with them too, you know. And I think anytime, and I found at least, anytime I ask somebody to tell me about what they do, they're happy to talk about it. Or and tell me like, dude, this sucks. You don't want to do it. Or this is what it really is. It's kind of brutal. Or this is, maybe you'd be good at this. And just talking to people. And I really, really enjoyed, I got a lot out of it. And you talk to one person, oh yeah, well, you need to talk to this guy. And it just, that was my process for getting out. For me, I knew I wanted to go back to Tampa. So I had been stationed at SOCOM at MacDill Air Force Base from 9 to 12. In my last 2 years were in Lejeune. We'd kept our house in Tampa. And when I retired, we moved back to the same house we had from before. So the kids knew that area as another part of the family. Like, they had been there, they had friends there, some friends there. So knew I wanted to go to Tampa. Knew I wanted to get into business. Like, I think I started learning what I didn't want to do. Yeah, that was also part of the process. Was I don't want to go back and be a GS. You know, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So I think that's part of the process. Eliminating what you don't want to do. Yep. Then helps you figure out what you do want to do. So I knew Tampa. I knew I wanted to be in business. What did that mean exactly? Then you're tightening your shot group of who you talk to. And my first job actually out of the military was working for a company called Custom Cable that manufactured and installed fiber optic cable. And the connection through a college buddy of mine to a guy that ran the company, and I went in to be their kind of ops guy. But I really did embrace the process, I would say, compared to most.
I don't mean this in an offensive way. It almost sounds like you're back to being like Second Lieutenant Higgins again, in the sense of not in the sense of you just gave up your 25-year career, but you got back into that mindset of, I don't know certain things. I'm going to ask questions. Totally. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to learn from other experts in the field to start building up that confidence again in a different industry or space.
And I found that exciting. I think that's, for me, I found it exciting to do that. Mm-hmm. Where I think a lot of people find it very scary. Yeah. You know, and I make the analogy, you know, for most people getting out, if they have this Shawshank Redemption moment, right? It's like, hey, I've been in the institution for 20, 25, 30 years. I know how I fit into this world. Leaving the gates of the institution, people are scared. I was I was not, maybe call it arrogance, call it cockiness, whatever. I was very confident in myself that I would be okay. And I really embraced it. I felt like I had done all I wanted to do in the Marine Corps. And I got to a point where it was, I don't want to say easy, but it was routine. I knew it was good. I was good at it, but it wasn't like pushing me mentally, I felt like, anymore. So to be in a place where I was the dumbest guy in the room, admittedly, I didn't know anything about cable and all the different, like that was sales and marketing and all this stuff was crazy. Like, budgets, like in the military, there's no budget, like you get paid, like it's going to happen. No matter you have a good sales month or a bad sales month, in the Marine Corps, you get paid. Yeah. In the real world, you don't, so it was very eye-opening and like, ooh, this is different. But I really enjoyed it and was excited by that new chance to kind of start over.
I sometimes say, and again, I don't mean this in an offensive way, that there is a level of comfort in the military, which sounds weird because especially in, certain jobs, you're out in the rain, you're eating MREs, you're, PTing at 6 a.m, but where you're always going to have to be.
Yes.
For the most part, besides deployments. But there's always somebody above you and who's going to tell you where to go. 100%. And then you have some influence. But, in the civilian world, you don't hit your quotas, you might get fired. Right. You don't know something, you're going to have to learn it.
No, the military is super, easy is the wrong word. But what your rank, you're responsible for these things. To get promoted, you need to do this, and this, and you'll have a right cutting score, you'll get promoted, right? You go to this school, you show up on this time. It's all laid out for you. The civilian world is obviously not that way, especially when, just like promotion for like, what do you do to there's no roadmap. In the military, everything is regimented roadmap. This is how you do it. It is very much, I think, to leave that behind, I see it every day. I talk to transitioning veterans every day, and they're scared. A lot of them are they're lost. Yeah. Because of the comfort they had before of, I'm a sergeant, I know how to do this. If I need my order, if I need an MV, if I need whatever, I have a guy. Yeah. Now I'm like, I don't have a guy anymore.
Well, and again, not to over psychoanalyze, but your ability to, I guess, be comfortable going down a peg, especially, being a colonel in the Marines, and then suddenly, like you said, being the dumbest, I'm going to say, quote unquote, the dumbest guy in the room, right? I talked to some veterans who, they go, well, I don't want to be below somebody else who maybe hasn't done this or this. Yeah. And to some extent, I get it. It's definitely a weird feeling, and you shouldn't put yourself in a position where you're just being belittled or that you're starting from ground zero per se, but getting comfortable being uncomfortable or being comfortable having to some extent almost start over, I think is a valuable thing. And I don't know why I think about this, but you mentioned you had done plays in high school. Yeah. Which is also another one of those things where you're just being comfortable. Do you remember your lines? Well, you're going to find out. You forgot your lines on stage.
It's live. Maybe you're going.
Exactly. Yeah. You are. Yeah. That's why I love improv. I love comedy. Yeah. I love things that you're going to learn today.
This is it.
You start your set. You're in front of people. It's either going to go well or you're going to have a good, valuable learning lesson in front of a big crowd, which sounds silly, but it does instill those mindsets and techniques to just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And I would say, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to be in the intel when I got out. I didn't want to be a GS. Yeah. I could have gone back and worked in a military type role, but then I would have been working for I'm like, that would have been the easy thing to do. Yeah. And I would have been very comfortable, but I was almost looking forward to being uncomfortable and pushing myself. I think that was for me part of why I look forward to and enjoyed that transition was okay, this is maybe going to be harder in the short run, but I knew it'd be more fulfilling in the long. I know I needed that challenge.
Where are you now, and how did you get there?
Yeah, so 2 years custom cable. We actually did we did the install work of fiber optic cable in a couple Amazon facilities. Mm-hmm. Everything on all those robots at the Amazon facilities run on fiber, right? As a result of that, my boss at the time at Custom Cable, like, hey, go figure out how to sell more cable to Amazon. I'm like, all right, LinkedIn. Who do I know at Amazon? I'm like, hey, Bill, hey, Joe, hey, Kathleen. And this Kathleen Carroll was one of my good friends over there at the time. I'm like, how does Amazon buy cable? And I'm like, we have any idea what you're talking about. I'm in recruiting. I'm like, oh, well, all right. Well, if you think of anything, he's like, well, it's funny you should call because this is 2000 now. 16, I'd been at Custom Cable for 2 years. Jeff Bezos had made a pledge to hire 25,000 veterans at Amazon. The team at Amazon, was not built. There was no team in place to do that. They kind of had an ad hoc focus on veteran hiring back in 2016. And one of my friends that I called up, Kathleen, she's like, would you be interested in coming over here and helping us build this team out? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I'd not been in HR. I have no recruiting background, but she knew my personality. She knew that I was kind of connected to a lot of people, that I would be a good person to have on that team, and made that call and worked at Amazon for 7 years. And yeah, it's great.
There's so much more to go over. We're starting to come up on time. What are you doing today? You, I think, started a new role.
Yeah. So I did Amazon for 7 years. I got very comfortable in the veteran hiring space, left there 2 years ago, and I do two things now. One is I work for a company called Oplign, stands for Optimal Alignment, that uses tech to match veterans to jobs. And I work for the military veteran, helping them to place veterans into executive roles in the private equity, venture capital backed space. So yeah.
The kind of phrase, you've made it, I guess, gets thrown around a lot. Do you feel like you've made it? What does making it kind of mean to you?
That's a great question. I don't know if you ever, from a professional standpoint, I feel blessed in that I'm doing something that I love, that I'm passionate about, that allows me to give back. And I think that's the older I get, the more it's important to me to find those ways to give back, like we talked about earlier, being that servant leader. So I'm also very involved with the Travis Manion Foundation. Travis was one of my Marines that was killed by a sniper at one of my deployments. And their motto is, if not me, then who, right? So, each one of us needs to step up in their own way and give back, right? So, being able to be, so I host a 9/11 run in New Orleans and in Tampa for the Travis Manion Foundation. I give back by helping veterans find jobs and talking to veterans every day to, help them make that transition. So using the gifts I've been given to help others is what it's all about. So I do feel like, I can just, am I the expert in any of this? I don't know, but I'm comfortable and I'm happy and I love, it really comes down to you want to work with people at this age in my life that are just good people.
Yeah.
I love the Oplign guys. I love the Milvet guys. I love the Context guys. If you're good people, that's what I gravitate toward, with a good mission.
Yeah.
If you can find quality people doing quality things and my expertise can be of value to that, I want to be a part of it.
You hit on a few things that I think are super important. One, most importantly, are you happy?
Yeah.
Which you answered. And then two, it's almost, I think it's great to always have a goal. You never make it, because once you make it, you just say, well, now this is the next thing that I want to get to. But it sounds like really the most important thing is just, do I feel fulfilled? Right.
Yes.
And that it can be a very corny and cliche thing. But whenever I found myself the most happy in my career, in my life, and that doesn't mean day to day, there's days that I'm sad and there's weekends, that don't go well, or there's, tragedies or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I always try to reflect, like, am I fulfilled in what I'm doing? And would I want to be doing something else right now?
Yeah.
And as long as that answer is no,
and I think there's different phases, right? I mean, there's professionally, I'm loving what I'm doing. Personally, my daughters got married. Mm-hmm. My kids are doing pretty well. My wife is amazing. I mean, I'll say 100%, I would not be here today without my wife's support over the last few years. I mean, through the military piece for sure. And we had some rocky times that we've made it through. So blessed to have just a wife that has been, helped me get to be the better person awesome. And spirituality is super important to me. Yeah. My relationship with God, and I just did every year I do a silent 4-day Jesuit retreat in Manresa, a little town outside of New Orleans, and that so spiritually, physically trying to stay in shape, from professionally, for my family, and when all those things are in balance and harmony, life's pretty good. But again, could not do it without my bride. She's been the best. Yeah. So yeah.
That's amazing. Beau, I have so many more questions for you. We'll have to have you back on.
Sounds good. More MREs. Exactly. All right, sounds good.
Or maybe we'll do it in New Orleans. Bring me
the jambalaya. Jambalaya was my favorite back in the day. I get a little Tabasco, a little jambalaya, MRE. I'm all in for that. And maybe a Sazerac.
Exactly. That will make it even better.
Sounds good.
Beau,
awesome. It's a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. That was awesome. Thanks.